We are recording. Okay, so the color wheel is a diagram of the, I guess, sort of basic hues in the spectrum, like the spectrum of, I guess, what is called the artist's spectrum, which is different from the spectrum of visible light. Do any of you know about the spectrum of visible light?
No, I don't.
Well, briefly, I'll get more. I'll put together more information about it, but generally, so you don't need to know for the assignment. You don't need to know much, if anything, about the spectrum of visible light. But in terms of learning about color, it can be important. Isaac Newton, way back once upon a time, several centuries ago, when he lived in like the late, it was like 18th century. He's the guy who you may know gave us the laws of motion, and he also did studies in optics, which is the real application of that word, and just in terms of like how we see things, and things that are optical are visual. And so the spectrum of visible light, you've heard of infrared and ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So the spectrum of visible light, it's like is energy that we can see, and something like with our eyes cannot see ultraviolet or infrared without mechanical help. But we can see the colors. There are seven hues in the spectrum of visible light. Yellow, oh boy, it's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And there's a seven. So the seventh one, indigo. Isaac Newton insisted that there was a separate color between blue and violet called indigo, and there like that doesn't really, it doesn't exist specifically in the color wheel, which is made from material like colorants, like paint, which has pigment or dye creating the color. Pigments are naturally occurring colorants, like yellow ochre is a really common earth pigment that's very abundant, and so tends to be cheap. And also in early civilizations, it's used a lot because it was everywhere. Other more difficult, there are other like lapis. There are other kinds of like mineral pigments that come from plants. Bone is used to produce black, and this really is just like they're charred bones that are pulverized and then mixed into a medium, and then they become paint. Like linseed oil is the medium for oil paint. Okay, so what you need to know, there is light energy that is color, and that's how we see things. We see color. We see you look at an object that's red, like an apple, and that red apple is the reflecting all the other colors of the spectrum away from itself. Actually, no, it's absorbing all the colors and it's reflecting red back to you. So that's generally how it works. We won't get too much into the physics and into the science of it because we don't need to. But its surface is red, and so it reflects red back to you. All the colors of the spectrum hit it, and it absorbs everything except red, which is reflected back. So that's like what's happening, and then your eye receives it and sends the information to the brain that is red. paint comes from, a colorant, so like a material like pigment or dye, and dyes are chemical substitutes. Like there are a lot of chemical substitutes for, I guess dyes can be organic, but chemistry is used to produce the colorants in a large enough quantity now so that things can be colored. Since there are so many people in the world. All right, so the color wheel is a diagram of the 3 primaries, the 3 secondaries, and then a range of tertiary hues that are in between the primaries and secondaries. I made this. Whoops. We got to share this guy. Let's get the camera up. There it is. So here, I'm going to go back over this, and I'm going to type something up so that it's not so. Normally when we meet in person, I'm doing all this stuff on the board, and so as I speak and talk, and you write things down, it gets reinforced in your memory. So I would suggest you write some of this down for yourself. Okay, so on Tuesday, I talked about the primary hues, and so hue equals, does anyone remember what hue means? Or no? Some of you weren't there and won't know.
It's another word for color?
Yes. So it's another word for color. It generally it's generally used when it is referring to a specific color. So we'll say color identity. Value. You've encountered value with your black and white assignments. What? Value equals lightness and darkness. Saturation is the degree to which color is present. Okay. Hue, value, saturation are properties that are present anytime you see color. So this one, saturation, the yellow, let's just say this yellow right here, that is full saturation yellow. It's right out of the bottle. And I haven't added anything that would cut the saturation. The ways to reduce saturation are by adding black, white, gray, or the color's complement, which is its opposite on the color wheel. So it'll neutralize it. I have read quite a lot of color theory books will tell you that chroma and saturation mean the same thing, but they don't. I don't know where these people are getting their information. Chroma refers to the presence of color in general. For example, something that is monochrome or monochromatic. Monochromatic. Mono is one. Chrome is color. And monochrome or monochromatic is when you have an object or a color scheme that uses only one hue. So that doesn't have anything to do with how much of the hue is present. You can have multiple saturations, and you have to have multiple saturations with any monochromatic color scheme. This is the kind of thing that's done in design all the time. You limit the experience of hue to one, and then you can use gray, white, black to create lighter, darker versions of that one hue. That's monochromatic. Polychromatic means multiple colors. Achromatic means no color. It doesn't have anything to do with the degree of the experience of the color. So there, take that, incorrect color theory books. So that's there, and there's also with color, which is not, it's not as consistent as these three of hue, value, and saturation, is temperature. Temperature is probably the easiest one to figure out, right? What would you guess would be the temperature of yellow? If you had to choose between warm and cool.
Warm.
A plus. Blue, what would you guess its temperature is, warm or cool?
Cool.
It is cool. You are correct. You get a Choco Cat sticker. And if you don't know who Choco Cat is, then I'm sorry for you. You can look it up.
I'll take it.
Yes, Choco Cat is in the Hello Kitty pantheon. I don't know why I know that. Okay, so warm. Cool. All right. So this is information that, when I talk about hue, when I talk about value, when I talk about saturation, this will help you to understand what I'm talking about. And if you go out into the world and talk about color, people do use this terminology. Some people will use the terminology incorrectly. You can correct them or not, depending on the situation. You don't have, I wouldn't go around scolding people if they're incorrect, but some situations might require you to say, like, it's not really what that means. There's a lot of jargon where people are using words they're using words incorrectly, and then everyone just uses it incorrectly, and then it just completely changes the meaning. Did you know that the term normalcy is incorrect? Anybody? Did you know that that's wrong?
No, but I hear the phrase or the word normalize constantly now
Yeah.
in the media.
Normalize is correct, but here, this is your little, my normality. That's the correct form of a condition of normal. normalcy was coined, to my knowledge, back in the 1920s, during a presidential campaign. Warren Harding, who was not known for being super sharp, had a campaign slogan, "A return to normalcy," and that was, then they knew that it was wrong, and so it was kind of like eroded his credibility a little bit. But he still won. What are you going to do? I just want to say that because it is true. All right, now back onto color. So the color. How many of you have ever painted before? Anyone?
I have.
Painted pictures? That kind of thing?
I've tried with oils, but it was kind of like watching grass grow.
Oil painting takes patience.
I tried watercolors, but they're very tricky.
Yes. Yeah, color. I mean, painting. So the nice thing with what we're doing is it is very simple. You're not painting a picture. You're just painting samples of colors. So the video from Tuesday is posted, and there is this. So I painted. Yeah, these are both yellow. This is yellow with a little bit of orange. So here I'm adding red. So this is like red, gradually more and more red. You know what? I also do want to do this, the color wheel. Color wheel. Where's my marker? We'll make sure this is nice and clear. Okay, so the primary color. So here, what we're going to do: yellow, violet, red, blue, orange, green. Red, yellow, and blue are the three primary hues. Green, orange, and violet are the secondary hues. You create the secondaries by mixing two primaries. That's how that works. The tertiary hues are in between these adjacent primary and secondary hues. Tertiary means third. It's like in terms of ranking, primary, secondary, tertiary are so like a descending order.
I have one of my paintings in watercolor, but I'm really bad at it, and I don't know the technique. I should probably practice, but I can show you.
At some point, if you would like, I can talk to you a little bit about watercolor technique.
Okay, yeah. Some other time when we have time, sure.
Yeah,
That'll be interesting.
it's yeah. I mean, you have to. Watercolor needs to be painted. It works best if it's painted in a certain way.
Yeah, I like it because it's so like not exact in a way. Like
Yes.
there's a lot the brain has to kind of like figure out.
Yeah. One of the I guess it's something that you have to when you're painting with watercolor. One of the things you have to do is make sure that you have the brush very wet.
Oh, okay.
You need a lot of water in the brush with the color, so that when you apply a wash with the brush, it's really like it really has to be like a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to use the right paper. If you don't use the right paper, like this paper doesn't have enough sizing in it, I'm sure. And if I tried painting watercolor, it would just like soak in immediately and just be this kind of like
Because I guess I tried to use it as a regular other paint. I sketched kind of like an outline, more or less, of the bird, and then I filled it in with watercolors.
Yeah.
It kind of worked out in the end.
Okay. Well, um, well, we can talk about technique or watercolor at some point.
Okay.
Other people might find it interesting. We could do that, like maybe later in one of these classes. Okay, so the way you make the color wheel is you're going to paint these like samples in thirds between yellow and red, between yellow and blue, and between red and blue. You start with yellow and you gradually add a little bit of red, little bit of red, little bit of red, and you get this range. You will paint more of them than you're actually going to use. The finished color wheel will have 12 hues representing primary, secondary, and all of the tertiaries in between them. It'll be an important distinction at some point, like the end of the semester, when I give you a quiz about color. A tertiary hue is a mixture of a primary and a secondary that are adjacent on the color wheel. If you say that a tertiary is just a mixture of a primary and a secondary, that could mean red and green, not red and violet. And red and green don't mix to give you a tertiary. They neutralize when they mix. You'll see that in a couple of projects. You're going to do a complementary assignment. So you'll finish with 12 hues, but you will paint many more when you start, because you don't know. Just like looking at this, I'm not trying to like mix and make my yellow orange and then make my orange. I don't know. The more of these that I paint, the more I have to choose from after all the paint dries. All right, now.
Duffy, what was the second part of adjacent primary and secondary colors?
Yes.
But then what was the ending phrase?
Well, they have to be adjacent on the color wheel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's that the first thing is it has to be a primary with the secondary, and the second is they have to be adjacent.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I was stuck.
Yes, and there is a list of vocabulary in Blackboard that you can look at, but I'll go over that stuff too. Where in the world did I put my mixing stick? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really hate it when I don't put things back where they were. Oh, you know what? I think it's up here. It is. Oh, thank goodness. All right. So the Microma paint has been around for a few years. If you don't, leave the jar open, you probably don't have to stir it. But if they sit long enough, if you buy a bottle that's already old, you might have to stir it to get the more solid stuff off the bottom and mix it into the thinner stuff at the top. If it's too thin, you can see the pencil lines. Yellow is a tough color because the yellow is so light that when you put it down on something darker, it sometimes is like not much you can do. It's going to show through unless I paint more layers. And I'd rather you not. I mean, you can paint more layers if you want to, but if I'm mixing to produce all these other colors, I really can only like paint another layer if it's one of the primaries, since that's all I have the bottles of paint for. So if I mix this, and I think I did a better job cleaning my brush yesterday, or Tuesday. This paint, the bristles are, it's an old brush, it has been stained for a while. All right, so if I just mix this, oh, sorry. Scrape off the edge. Let's try another one. So I want to get the, I'm trying to keep this, especially with the yellow, I don't want to make it too thin, so I want to get the paint off the brush. So like the strokes are all the way across. But at first I pull up a little short so that as I paint it starts to spread a little bit. And then I get that. I'm going to try, just take a little bit of extra paint. I'm going to try going over this one. The chroma paint is not waterproof. It stays water soluble, so if you get it wet, you'll reactivate it. So painting a second, like painting more over one of these samples can be chancy, because if you in painting it, you sort of reactivate and like make the paint underneath, it's like wet again, or you start to dissolve it a little bit. You can like kind of get like chunks of dried paint, and it can just like make what looks kind of like a big hole in it. But that actually looks better now that I painted this second layer. But you can see with the light shining on it, there's like a little bit of texture. That little bit of texture will flatten out. Okay, so I did red. I mixed red in the last time. I'm going to mix blue in this time. Okay. And when you're putting your brush down, I set it down on the cup like this. Sometimes I'll take it and set it on the edge of the table, but that's usually a little chancy. Stir blue. Yeah, well, this is getting actually getting a little thicker because I think some of the water is just evaporated. Yeah.
Duffy, if you get it on your clothes or something, is it does it wash out, or is it?
It does wash out, although I can't say that it won't stain like clothing.
Okay, thanks.
Like if I get it on my jeans, it'll wash out.
So I'm not going to be doing it over a white carpet.
Yeah, I would not do much over a white carpet.
Thanks.
Honestly. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say that, darker colors will hide stains, but it's true. I guess sometimes you don't have to see everything. All right. All right, so the blue. So to do this bit to paint green, I don't need much blue. That might be more than I need. All right. So here we go. I'm going to paint just a little bit. That's too much. All right, you see that much yellow, this little amount of blue on the brush, on the corner, and then we have color magic. Woo! That's actually, yeah, see, like the blue and the red, when you mix the blue and the red into the yellow, they're quite dark. And so darker hues, so this is where value will affect color. Darker hues will affect lighter hues to a greater degree. If I try to add that same amount of yellow into blue, it won't even show up. It's just not enough yellow to affect the blue significantly. So the best thing, so to conserve your painting the range of green and the range of orange, you start with yellow and then add the red or the blue depending on which one you're painting. That is, you see, like, I think that's a little too much all at once. I want to be more gradual. But here, so that little bit of blue did that to yellow. If I feel like, oh no, I put way too much in, I got to go back, I could put more yellow into that. I would make a decision to do that sooner rather than later, because the more blue you add and the darker this gets, the more yellow it would take to bring it back. And if you make this, so if you make these colors, that's enough. I'm going to stop. Quit goofing around. I'm a little bit more on there. If you paint, I normally recommend that you just can keep adding. I would recommend that you would just keep adding blue, and if you need to come back and paint between yellow, get a better range of yellow green. Wait till you're done, and then just get some more yellow out, and then add less. Because at this point, if I'm going to try to add yellow and bring this back, I don't want to use up all my yellow trying to get this, trying to make this happen. Yeah, this would have been a much better first step. I'm going to get up the wall here, make sure I'm getting as much of this so I have this consistently mixed. Make sure you mix this well. On occasion, when I'll see this in the classroom, I see somebody put yellow into a container like this, and then they put the blue over here, and they're trying to mix over here. They're trying to do the mixture over here and then keep the blue over here out of it, and it almost never works. Separate cups for separate colors. So if you had a really large, just like a large ceramic plate, like an old dinner plate or something like that, you could do it like that, but the cups are convenient. I recommend you do it the way I'm doing it. You can just any yogurt cups, anything, before you recycle them, you can give them a life as a mixing cup for this class. There we go. That's done. Don't mess with these too much. It shouldn't take too long to paint. I can see even up here where I'm hitting it when I start with the brush, it makes it a little bit thinner. So I talked about this on Tuesday with the shape of these samples that I'm painting out. The color wheel that you make primarily needs to be clear in terms of the presenting the colors to me. But you can make it a little bit creative. So I don't want you to get so creative that you sacrifice the quality of the color. But I think maybe we'll do that now. This will be okay for a little bit, sitting there. And so I want to do a little, for the benefit of those of you who may not have seen what we did. You know what? I'm going to have to do color wheel. There we go. Boop, boop, boop. All right, so color wheel. If you do a web search for color wheel, you'll be there for a really long time before you get through all of the color wheels. You don't need to know a lot about all the color ordering systems. You know, you need to know basically this. Oh, color wheel primer HGTV. What's that? Now, one thing I want to point out. So here's the arrangement that I use: yellow at the top, red to the right, blue to the left. This is actually, these colors are not really all that great, but you kind of get the idea. The violet that they show, 1, 2, 3, red, violet. Yeah, okay. Yellow at the top. Violet is the opposite of yellow on the color wheel. And this violet is light. This is lightened so that you can see it. With the paint that you're using, your violet's going to be very dark. And when the colors are wet, when you're painting between red and blue, when the paint is wet, it's going to be really hard to see the distinction between like violet and blue violet. You have to just paint all of them, let them dry, cut them out off of your media paper, and then line them up and look at them. And when I'll demonstrate how we do this, because there are ways that you can make distinctions. At first, you look at it and think that I can't tell. I will help you to figure out how to tell, because your eyes work well, I'm sure, and they can see it. So here, ooh, this color wheel poster. I like this color wheel poster. Come here. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? So this has, I've taught this color. I've taught color assignment, a lot of different colors, more color assignments than you're going to do in this class. So here, this ring in the center, this middle ring here on this is these are the saturated hues, and this is this is a 24 hues around, and then shades to the outside and tints to the inside. Tinting in color theory is when you add white. Shading is when you add black. For some people, tinting is when you lighten, shading is when you darken. Doesn't really matter if you use gray, white, or black, or the complement. But tinting is lightening, shading is darkening. I worked in the paint store for several years when I was in college and grad school, in fact. And tinting in the paint industry is when you add color to a neutral base. So, like tint base is just like a neutral. Basically, it's the medium of oil or latex paint without color, and then you add colors from little. It's pretty fascinating. You add different amounts of different colors to produce colors that are that match the samples in the fan deck. All right, so here, but this is a good one with you have yellow, red, blue. This is a better violet. So here you can see like the shift gradually from like red, red, violet into violet, and then blue, violet, and blue, blue, green. The blue greens really, like if you're subtle with your blue greens, those are some gorgeous colors. Okay, so this is like simple, straightforward color wheel diagram. This actually has shading and tinting, which you won't need to do. If we say, if you wanted to know, like, what can I do for a color wheel? Creative color wheel. Oh my goodness. So like something like this, which is like mysteriously red at the top. This is okay. I would want you to put yellow at the top, but you know, that's all right. But this is sort of just has this like shape that is, you know, this kind of like simple flower petal shape that gets thinner in the middle so that you can lay them out and they can sort of close up the space. You know, if you just made like squares, they kind of like, it's kind of nice if they taper in, get a little smaller to the middle, because then you can arrange them, they can kind of like go into the middle without crowding each other. Others, like, yeah, go ahead.
For some reason, I thought earlier, maybe I misunderstood. You said your preference is red on the top.
Not
So,
yellow on the top.
okay. Oh, good. I'm glad you clarified. Okay.
Yeah. Really, if you've got all the, if you have all of the hues and they're all in the right order, it really doesn't matter which one is on the top. You just wouldn't want to have like, you know, like here you've got this, I love this, the popsicles, man, come on. This is great. So like this has the green, it's like, it works. It's like, it's not like they put like, you know, it's not as if like they put orange over here where violet should be. So as long as they're in the right order, I don't care. Amber S, A+, good job. So this is, you know, I think some of them can get a little bit tricky. The Pikachu, oh my God, Pikachu. This is a little bit messy, but you gotta watch out for like, you know, getting too much black in your paint. But you know, the fourth grader, that's darn good at fourth grade. I was, you know, fourth grade. We were being frightened with stories of what we can expect in purgatory. We were not painting color wheels. Cat, come on, you know I love cats. But you know, you're going to cut them out of like you're going to paint them flat and then cut them out of paper. So I show you this now because if you're going to think about, this is a good design here because you can see the negative it creates between them right here. I want you to think about that because if you're going to paint just like bigger samples and cut these pieces out, you need to know the approximate dimensions. So like I measured these out that I'm painting on at 1.5 by 2.5, and I left a little space in between so I can, you know, overpaint a little bit. So that's where you like, you know, think about what are you going to try to do with your color wheel. Well, that's not, you know, this is not necessary. That's cool, but you know, actually, what these are is this is just like a group of monochromatic paintings presented as a color wheel. Not bad. Yeah, I don't have a Pinterest account, so it's probably not going to let me. No, Oh, Pinterest, you're so selfish. Okay, good, good, good. Does that give you the idea or an idea of what you can do? I would not, I mean, SpongeBob with a rainbow, great idea, but not for this assignment. Simple, straightforward, like that. You know, star shape, flower shape, leaves. I like the leaves here. That's cool.
So we can just do any shape we want.
Any shape you want. You know, as long as it works to present the colors clearly in a wheel diagram. So some of these get a little, you know, like that's interesting, but you know, that's not a circular diagram. So I want it in a circular diagram. You could use this kind of like, you know, irregular lightning bolt shape for all of the for each of them. They could be, you know, you could make them all slightly different as long as they present. I mean, presenting the colors clearly is important. So, like for example, if you are painting, let's come back to, let's just see, like this guy. All right, so let's say, for example, you have yellow. So here, like the yellow, green, and the green are really similar. So it should be yellow, yellow, green, green, blue, green, and then blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The blue-green is too green, and the green is too yellow. The yellow-green looks good. Here, like this one, like the yellow-green, the yellow-orange, they look good. You can see where it's tough if they're not solid, if they're too thin and brushy. It can be hard to clearly communicate the paint, like which color it is. So like here, the blue and the blue-violet are too similar, which means that for blue-violet, it doesn't have enough red in it. So I'm sorry, Cassie, but we're just demolishing your color wheel, but she won't know. And she's an elementary school student, so I'm not grading it. But does that, I mean, and you'll see that when you paint them, you know, when you have to do this, let me get my camera back. Yes, the samples are made on media paper. If you paint this on the sketchbook paper, the sketchbook paper is too thin. The sketchbook paper won't hold up well to getting painted. Okay, so here, these are drying. You kind of just have to let them dry fully. Okay, so now there are certain things to know when you're painting. The amount of paint, like the amount of yellow I start with, will affect the amount of blue that it takes to change the yellow. If I have less yellow, it takes less blue, which ought to make sense. So let me just get back here and do another. Oh, I didn't really finish my right, so that blue that I put in there, didn't change it significantly. And stop. That's enough. Also see that I need more. that measurement. Yeah. Order. Yes. Okay. Be careful. I made these pencil lines a little dark with lighter. With the lighter hues, you can see that it's really hard to keep the pencil line from showing through. But this is a yellow I painted over a second time. That's good right there. A little bit of brushiness is, as long as the color is clear, a little bit of brushiness is I guess it's not fatal. Okay. All right, so the darker this gets, the more blue it will take to change it. So if you keep adding the same amount of blue, then the degree of change will start to slow. And this is, just a matter of you make your best guess, and at first you don't know what to do, you don't know how to do it, so you have some period of trial and error. I suggest you just let yourself have that period of trial and error. And the first set that you paint might not be all that great, and you might end up repainting them. But you have to learn. You have to learn technique with this. This is not the same as painting a picture. This is just trying to control. So I'm going to get a bunch of paint on the brush, scrape it all off of one side, scrape some of it off of that side there. And if I paint this next to this one, there. So one problem I see students run into is if they don't you don't have enough paint on the brush, you can't really get an opaque or solid sample. If you have too much paint on the brush, then you just get it just it gets too heavy, too kind of it'll just retain texture, like brush stroke texture, or you'll just have to to flatten it out you'll just have to keep spreading it bigger and bigger. So as with so many things, when you're learning how, you need to know the right the right amount of paint. I can tell you and even demonstrate to you, even if we were in person, I could demonstrate to you. But when you're painting your samples, you're the one who has to do it. So there's, I can only get you so far with explanations and demonstrations, and then you have to do it yourself. Okay, see, you can see some of the bristles at the top. I've got it scraped off of that side. Good. Okay, so the I estimated that for the size of my, for the size of the sample that I might use, that this 1.5 by 2.5 is it's bigger, so I have room for cutting off. I have room to cut off, extra around it. So sometimes it happens you have a sample that looks like it's just like a bad one, but then when you consider using it to cut out a shape of color, you realize that a lot of the bad parts are going to get cut away. Yeah. Good. Ooh. Yep. At first it looks like it's like, it might look like it's too much, and then you mix it in, and then the rest of the color will just absorb it, mix it in there. Good. And it's kind of nice the more blue I get in there. I know the blue is, my blue is more viscous or thicker than the yellow, so I'm just getting this much more body to the paint. So you can see right here there's a significant difference. Here I'm starting to get green. I'm not at green yet here. I'm really not even at green yet there. That, I think, is, to me, to my eye, looks like I'm getting to green. So I still have a way to go to get to blue-violet, to blue-green. And with some of the tertiaries like red-orange and blue-green especially, I find that it is common for students doing this, if you've never done this before, it's common to stop too soon and to think, well, that looks pretty good. If you really want to see like whether or not you've got blue-green, when you're painting out a sample of blue, like just plain blue, take a little bit of the blue, put it into a separate cup, add a little bit of yellow to the blue, enough that you can see it changed it, and then paint that out, and that's probably going to give you, like that'll show you whether or not your blue-green that you think you have correct is in fact correct. So here, so this is getting to where I need to start adding more blue, like a greater amount of blue, because now my green is not really changing. Not much, not enough. It doesn't have to be that gradual. I don't want it to be super gradual. If it's too gradual, you're going to end up with like, it's cool. I mean, you could, if you end up with like 100 or more, that'd be pretty cool. But that's more than is really necessary. If you paint, actually, if you're going for 12 finished colors. If you paint 50, that's a pretty good number. And if you don't think about it, if you don't think like, oh my God, I have to paint 50 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Without even really thinking about it, I have 12 already. So don't think about the number. That's not, the number that you paint ahead of time. The more you paint, the better, the easier it will be to choose your color wheel. Because when these are all dry, we cut all these out. We know the primaries, and then you can see between the yellow and the red, like all of your range of orange, and it's easier to see like which one is about in the center, and that's probably orange. So one of the reasons, like one of the things that you will get from doing assignments like this is a greater sensitivity in identifying subtleties, within color. And if you aren't looking for subtleties in color in your daily life, you won't see them. But once you start looking, and once you do directed assignments like this, you'll see it. The eyes, the thing is, you do see distinctions in colors all the time. You just don't really register that's what you're seeing. We see a lot that we don't actively use, but it sort of ends up in our subconscious. See, still not enough. And see how much darker this green is. Wow, okay, well, then more. I think with this, I'm going to have to add more than I think I should. It's also possible when you get into darker colors like this, you start adding more color than you paint out. And so, yeah, there is a distinction. You got to let them dry. So it's possible that you end up with just like a greater and greater volume of green. And if you start to end up with a lot of green, you can take some of this off, put some of this out into another cup, and then use that to mix the rest of it, so that you're not mixing such a great volume of paint. Okay, that's better. I can see there's more of a difference. Right, so paint goes down wet. I can't see the difference quite yet, but that's still, I can still do more. Yep, I'm getting a lot of paint here. So I'm going to do this where I take some of my green out. And so here, so if I move enough green into a clean cup, and so I have less of it, then I can use less of the blue to try to produce that new color, because I can see I still have to keep adding more and more blue here. Mm-hmm. More blue. I'll just do this until I get, so what's going to happen here is I'm going to start to see the blue more clearly in this. That's better. I feel a little better if I see a little bit of difference when I paint them out, although when they get darker, when they're wet, it's really difficult to see the difference. And so you really do have to just trust your process, paint it out, and let it dry. So because my my blue is a little denser and darker than my yellow, this paint is starting to get a little bit more viscous, which means, viscous means is sort of like the relative thickness of something. So something that is highly viscous is very thick. So I'm just going to dip this. I just dip the brush into water. I'm not pouring water in. I just dip the brush in. just to get the paint a little bit wet. I mentioned this on Tuesday. Don't pour water into your paint because you'll invariably pour too much in and make it too thin. I usually just dip if I want to get it, if it seems like it's getting a little too heavy or too thick, I will just dip the brush in water and then mix it. And if I need more, I can dip the brush in the water again. That's a much better way to control how much water goes in. Okay, so I'm still not, I'm not at blue-green yet. I'm getting there. So I just put a lot more blue in here. And I'm just going to paint out good. All right. Much more blue. So you could say that, you know, part of this process is that you are literally watching paint dry, but it's not the only thing you're doing. You should be doing something else while your paint is drying. I don't recommend just sitting here staring at them, waiting for them to dry. That's not a very good use of your time. While you're waiting for them to dry, you could be sitting here thinking about what your color wheel is going to look like. Maybe you could spend some time doing some drawing of a diagram and what the individual shapes will look like. If you want to, you could have 3 different shapes that are related. You could change the scale so that the primaries are largest, secondaries are a little smaller, and then the tertiaries are the smallest of all. That's better. Now I'm getting some blue. Still. So now I'm getting into my range of blue-green. You know, and you can see, like with this blue-green, you know, if it's up here, I paint it right up on top of that. This one, I can see, really clearly see the difference. So eventually you get there, and this has been, you know, I've been doing this for less than an hour. So, a little more, let's do a little more here. So this is the blue that had a little residue of green in it, which actually might give me something closer to a blue-green. I'm just going to paint a little sample of this out up here next to that guy. And that's cool. That might be a little closer to blue, but I really like seeing the blue-green you know, really truly have some obvious blue in it, because more often than not, I mean, I see it often where, you know, if you're doing this for the first time, you'll pull up too short on your tertiaries, especially blue-green and red-orange. Mostly blue-green, because I think it's probably just harder to see this. Good. So there is a significant, a more clearer difference here. Maybe do a little, just a little more. One more. Then I'm going to get my, I think I'm going to put some blue out into a fresh cup and paint the blue. So you really have a better understanding of like where your blue-green sits relative to blue if you've got blue to compare it with. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? All right. So these are samples for demonstration. Okay. Now when these dry and you cut them out with scissors right to the edge of the paint so you don't leave the white around it, and then you lay them down sort of like overlapping a little bit, you'll see the difference in color very clearly. Okay, now I'm going to clean up my brush a little bit. So as I mentioned on Tuesday, when you're cleaning the brush, you take it to a, if you really want to clean this brush out, you take it to a sink where you can clean a brush out. Put a little bit of liquid soap in your palm and then like squishy, squishy, squishy and you'll see all this paint coming out. Paint creeps up into the metal collar of the brush, and so you often have to wash them, a couple, like 2 or 3 times to make sure that you got everything out of it. If I paint, like if I do this range of, green, and then I go on, I think I wash my brush, and then I mix up yellow, and I'm going to add red. If I've still have green in this brush, as soon as I mix it into the yellow to try to paint another yellow sample, the green's going to affect it, and you won't get yellow. So make sure you clean your brush thoroughly. And I took painting classes in college, and I was really just probably the worst about taking care of my brushes. And I learned my lesson about not cleaning my brushes well. Also because my brushes just were at some point unusable. Okay, so this is the blue. That's the blue right out of the jar. There. So you can see the difference. You need to see the blue and the yellow and all the colors in between in order to get some, especially to get some context for like how, like, you can see that like these blue greens are actually pretty far. There's definitely a difference there. So don't assume when you have the paint and you can paint out a sample of the color like the blue to compare it. Don't, when you're doing this, don't just assume you're right. You can check it yourself. Sorry about that. Quiet you. Okay. So I would say that with this, for my range of like yellow, between yellow and blue, I have it. I'm not wild about these, like some of these samples that are thinner, but I don't want you to spend all of your time trying to make perfect samples. Some of them might just have to be good enough if you're like getting to the deadline. But if you have time and you want to try painting them again, I would say do it. Okay? All right. So then this, these, be careful when you're cleaning these. If you go to a kitchen sink or a bathroom sink and you put this in the sink and you turn the water on, as soon as if the water just hits that, it's going to spatter everywhere. And then it will get on you, on other things that maybe you don't want paint on, or something that's important to someone else you live with, and then you get, you just have to endure getting yelled at. That's avoidable. So avoid it. And it takes time. Just like get it right. Like I will take a rag like this that I've already got, used it to wipe off the mixing stick, and just like wash it out, rinse it, wash it out, rinse it, put some soap and water in there, and gradually you'll get them cleaned up. Yeah. Okay, so then after you do this, then I would take the yellow, mix this range of orange. Then the blue and the red you mix together and make your range of violet. Between blue and red, just follow your process. Stick with good process. And when it'll be very dark when you're mixing the red into the blue or the blue into the red. And I suggest you do both, like mix red, take red, mix blue into it. At some point it might get so dark you can't really tell. If you stop and clean your brush off and then start with blue and mix red into it, at some point you get these two like scales that are coming toward each other and get them to cross a little bit. And all of your colors will be there. Let them dry, cut them out, lay them out and compare them, and they'll be there. Any questions about this?
Yes. Do you suggest we try to do it in the daylight to get a better feel for it, or?
That is a very good point. Light will change depending on the time of day. Daylight is the standard for all artificial light. Whether it's a choice to make it warmer or cooler, daylight is the standard. I will say this, that in human vision, yellow and green are dominant. And so a lot of these really the very cold blue LED lights that are so weirdly popular right now, that's unpleasant to human vision. I've seen this on some of looking for the LED light bulbs, and you have to find they have the Kelvin value. Incandescent, the warm incandescent light is 2700 K. If you're looking for warm LEDs that reproduce the appearance of incandescent, 2700 K or 3000 K, that's good. 5000 K is the really sort of is the very blue. It's kind of like somebody had this nostalgia for fluorescent lighting and decided, let's make fluorescent lighting again, but make it more efficient. I think it's hideous, personally. But if you look at this in different light, you're going to see it differently. I've got a warm bulb in here, and so I see this with a certain, it sort of affects my experience of this color. But I also have a window to the right and daylight coming in. So if I turn this off, that's just ambient daylight. There is some light coming from above. Let me turn off the track. And the light's a little bit over there, but that does affect it. It will look different in different types of light. So just do your best. I think that it wouldn't change, when I choose green here, I'm looking at yellow all the way through here. When these dry and I cut them out, I think they might be dry enough. Let's see some color magic. Get my little blue sample here. Yeah, still a little bit wet. Now it's a little kind of rushing a little bit. So you could number them before you cut them off of here. But I don't know that that's really that necessary because you'll be able to see the difference just with your vision. Okay, again with scissors, mind where your fingers are. All right, so if I put there, so if I'm going to compare them by putting one on top of the other like that, I need to cut the white paper away so they can be sitting right on top of each other. Then I can see it. If I have the white on it, it's harder to see the difference. You can, if you cut the white away from at least one side and you can lay them down next to each other, you can compare these colors better. And even if you do mix them up, you would be able to put them down and look at them. Those are very close. This one's a little bit bluer. So you can see the difference. And so the way you would need, so the way Marion, you asked, how do you know which one is green? I cut all of them out. All right, so yellow, that's easy. And my blue, also, I can identify that. I think that's my lightest one. So and if you put if you lay them out and you think like, oh, that's not right, well then change it, move it to where it ought to go. That's good. So there's a term that is used in color theory, and that term is visual acuity. And acuity is related to the term acumen, which is how well you do something. And so visual acuity is how well you see. And that is something that can be improved with practice. And when you do assignments like this, you will improve your visual acuity for color. And really I'm getting shadows because of the light that's all coming from the right. I think I'm going to turn my lights back on. Okay. So let's say, for example, you paint a whole bunch of these and you get it all right and you see like one or maybe two of them are a little small. If it's not really like, if it's not going to change your design significantly, you could alter the you could alter them and make the color wheel, those shapes, a little bit smaller. All right, there I am. All right, so where's green? Is it here? No. Here, blue, green, yellow, green. It's got to be somewhere in here. If I paint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I have 17 between, including yellow and blue. So there are 15 in between. Right? So I might say that 7 or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I like one of these two for green. So that's how you can do it. You'll do it visually. But if you don't paint all these out and then trim them and lay them out like this, cut roughly, but cutting the paper off of at least one side, it's really hard to tell. You don't have to just look at them sitting on all on the big piece of the media paper and then guess which one is green. You don't have to. You can know with a pretty high degree of certainty which one is green. Yellow, green, I would say in this range here, green, or sorry, I have yellow, green, green. So let's try that. I'm just going to guess. I'm going to say this one, blue, green, maybe. That's a little too blue for the blue-green. So this is how you do it. You just do this process of trial and error. And then you pull it down, compare it, look at it. You want to try to see an even transition of color. Because it's getting darker, it's not an even transition of value. So, and if I look at it and I don't like this one, I want to see that. It's a little too green for me. It's still too close to the green and a little too far from the blue to be a good blue-green. So, no, I think the smaller one that I painted is a little better. It's tough. Sometimes you paint a whole bunch of them and you find I just don't have the one I need. If I had to go back and just say I got to figure out my blue-green, I don't know what happened. I would take a little bit of blue. I would put blue out and add yellow so that I'm just staying within this range when I'm mixing again. You don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. If you've got this, yellow. If you've got yellow, yellow, green, and green set, you don't need to paint them again. So that's how you would figure out which one is green. So it's a process, and you should follow the process, and the process will help you to know. That way, the best thing for me when I'm teaching you something is that at some point, sooner or later, better sooner, but whatever time it takes. The goal is that you don't need me. I teach you things, you try them, you ask me questions, I help you with it. And then at some point, you don't need to ask me because you have good process, and you have a method that allows you to understand what you're doing. All right. Very good. Now I wanted to go over vocabulary, but I need to put this. I need to put like a. I don't want to let everything sit and dry, so I'm going to go put these guys in the sink. I'm going to take a. Whoops! Did I shut that off? I did shut that off. I'm going to take 5 here, and so let's see. It's 9:36. At 9:45, I will go over the vocabulary list of terms and some what you're going to need to know. Okay? I'll be back. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So in Blackboard, in the here in the left menu, vocabulary. So in this vocabulary section is this link to this document. And you won't need Elliot. I really think it's cute when he talks to himself. All right, so some basics of the vocabulary. Basic terms. So in making images, whether it's in design or in art, there are some basic principles and terms that apply. And so these terms, like you can read them, of course. That a point is a single mark made with the tip of a pen, pencil, or brush. A line is a long mark. In geometry, you would say that a line is the shortest distance between 2 points. So we do use elements of geometry. Shape is a two-dimensional figure having width and height but no depth. Form, three-dimensional, height, width, and depth. The depth is also referred to as transverse in geometry. A contour line is a line that defines the edge of a shape or a form. Edge is a limit. So edges, we talk about edges. Sometimes I refer to, or I will read or hear someone referring to architecture or like a building having really nice lines. It has edges. It's a three-dimensional object. It doesn't have lines all over it. I know what they're talking about, but an edge is where two things come together and you see a difference. You see contrast on edges. And so edges are often created. In real life, edges are created by contrast, whether one thing is lighter than the other, or one thing is darker than the other. That's how you can see anything. We don't have lines all around everything. A contour line is a very useful device to allow us to create the appearance of edges, because we can draw that much more quickly than we can just shade, the difference between one surface and another one. So, value is relative lightness or darkness. That is true in color. It is true in, grayscale, black and white. But that's what in terms of art and design, that is what value means. It's not about money. A lot of things that we do have monetary value, but in terms of the images, value is relative lightness or darkness. So, and geometric and organic. Geometric, it's kind of a straightforward, like to write out a definition. It's like geometric is something that suggests or appears to originate from geometry, and then you use an example of a circle or a sphere. Those are geometric. Organic is shape or form that suggests the appearance of natural or living things. Geometry and organic are not necessarily exclusive of each other. The Earth is a spheroid. Really, it's not flat. The moon, other bodies, planetary bodies in space, are pretty geometric, but they're also organic. And so there's not a wall between geometric and organic, although a square is clearly a geometric figure, and a drop or like a puddle is clearly organic. Maybe a leaf shape would be clearly organic. Space, when we talk about space, we're talking about large empty area in a composition. Maybe not necessarily large, but it is space that appears to be unoccupied. Hey, I'm teaching, man. Come here. He wants to play really badly. Foreground. So far, does what I'm talking about make sense? Can you use your imagination and imagine these things?
Yes, but do we need to memorize it for some sort of for test or vocabulary, or it's just to know?
Well, I will test you on this. I think I'm going to change this. I want you to make drawings of them. I'm going to change the terms of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a list of terms I want you to use, and I'm going to want you to use this vocabulary list to understand what it means.
To show it on paper.
But I'm going to want you to make a drawing of each of the terms that I send to you.
Okay.
And then you're going to, I'll create a discussion board and you can post it in the discussion board.
Okay.
Because normally what I do when we meet in class, I would give you a paper document with these terms, and I would ask you to write out the definition, excuse me, and then make a drawing to accompany the definition. In this case, I think it's important that you would. So I'd ask you to, if I give you geometric, I would ask you to write out what the written definition is. So even though you can look it up, but I want you to write it out, and then I want you to make a drawing of an example of something geometric. But I want to go over this because it helps. If I talk about it, even though you can read these things, if I talk about it, it can help to give you some context. The difference between geometric and organic. Are any of you familiar with the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So his, some of his architecture, a lot of his architecture, he considered it to be organic, even though a lot of his, especially a lot of his career, his buildings were based on the rectangle. This long horizontal composition of a house, flat roof, and everything was rectangular. And the reason he considered his work to be organic is because of the material he used, especially the famous house Falling Water in Pennsylvania. He used stone in that house that was quarried close to the site, not too far from the building site, and he really wanted to make it look like the house belonged in the site. So almost as if it looked like it had grown from the earth. That was his imagining of organic. And so, with Wright, it had a lot to do with materials and the location. Okay, foreground, background, and middle ground. I think I'll do some demonstration drawings for you here for some of these things. Positive and negative. So discrete means solid. If it means like, don't tell anybody, it's spelled discreet. But discrete means it is palpable or something, something solid. Negative, so discrete shape in form, so like figure, it's the object. Negative, areas that appear to be unoccupied, similar to ground and space. So I want to make sure I'm clear about this figure and ground. I'm going to switch. So if you are looking at this list, I'm going to switch to the camera so I can show you some of what I'm talking about. Oh. All right. So let's say I'll go back and do a little bit of this like organic. I'm not necessarily going to tell you like everything you should be drawing because I want you to come up with some of your own. So organic, let's go back up here. Organic is shape or form that suggests the appearance of natural or living things. What is organic? Like what could I draw for organic?
Leaves and branches?
Very good. So a leaf. That's organic. Now, in design, we often use a symbolic or simplified version of something. So this is shape or of. Goes on to the next word. Shape or form that, what did I write? Suggests the appearance of natural or living things. Okay, now here, so this is a little bit of the language of art and design. It suggests it. I'm not saying that this is a leaf because it's not a leaf. So it goes back to that Magritte painting, this is not a pipe. It's like, no, it's not. It's a painting of a pipe. Ha, ha, ha. But, in art, we know we're inventing things, that this is not reality. This is it's a completely separate thing. Even if it's very realistic, it's still a facsimile made of different materials. This is not made of the same material that an actual leaf is. So that drop. Even just more abstract organic shape like that. You could engineer something that looks like this puddle or something like that. But what we think of when we think of geometry, I'll say geometric shape or form that is based on or originates from geometric figures. We could even say geometric figures or principles. I'm improving my definition on the fly here. So, like, if you have a circle, or I guess a rectangle would probably be a better way to demonstrate it, because if I can't draw a really clean circle, it might not, work well. A rectangle, that's geometric. Within, like, you also could have just like a corner. That's geometric because it comes from either a rectangle or a triangle. And if you have like an image and you've got a composition, those chevrons, or just like these, these corners of a rectangle or a triangle, that's geometric because it has a straight line and comes to a nice sharp point. So if I were to draw this as organic, and I do something like that, you see the difference in this, something that is very rigid and something that seems to flow a little bit better or differently. So there's a different character between what we often think of as geometric and organic. But, this right here could be a stone and not a sphere because I didn't do a very good job drawing that. If I want to try to make it look like a sphere, I could, if you are able to, draw a little cast shadow. Oh, that's kind of cool. It's a cute little sphere. Okay, so does that help?
Yes.
So one of the things I wanted, you can draw these out in pencil first. Foreground, middle ground, background. So these together, you might not always have all of them. You might not have middle ground. You might have something that just has stuff that's up close and stuff that's far away. But it assumes like depth and perspective when you have foreground, middle ground, background. So if I have and also scale is a way it can be done. So if I have even with something that's abstract here, all right. Here, this is my mysterious landscape. Foreground is the stuff that's clearly way up close to me. Middle ground is here between the foreground and the background. If I see this like mountain range in the back, way in the background, that's background. There, I've just created some facsimile of real space, but I've got foreground, middle ground, background. Positive and negative, and like something like, three-dimensional space like this, positive we would see like these objects as positive, and negative might just be like the sky. There's, if we understand that this is Earth down here, then that's also like solid form, that's positive. Positive and negative just often refer to, like, positive is like solid form, negative is not. And if you have like even with this, like, if I put this series of rectangles in here, I could imagine that these rectangles are the positive form. They could be solid. They could be like, figure and then ground. It could be that these are perfect, like, openings cut in like a piece of paper, sheet metal, something like that. Sometimes you have to have like context for what's positive, what's negative. But in general, looking at it, not just looking at it as, objects, that's positive, that's negative. That's also figure, and then also out here, ground. In an abstract sense, usually like in like flat compositions, figure is the object, ground is the field that is sort of like what's around it. Sometimes I ask this question and I will get this as an answer. I will get figure and ground. That's not really what I mean. It's not this. It's that. It's not the same as, literally like a figure and then ground that the figure is standing on. It could be, but the ground is really like, would really be the background too. And actually this is figure, the ground here is figure. In this drawing, the ground would be like the space around it, not, yeah, that's actually figure, because it's understood to be a solid object. So, all of this is to just keep you informed about what, how people use this this vocabulary. Okay, texture is actual or implied appearance of a surface. So texture really, like, probably the best way to make sure that texture is clear would be like, this seems to have texture. It's like some hairy thing, or sharp thing. But texture generally refers to the appearance of a surface or some object. Open and closed compositions. This is an open composition right here. so is this, because the imagery goes to the edge of the composition window and seems to go outside it. So it suggests that there's more out here. We're just seeing like a little fragment or a window onto it. A closed composition is when you don't go to the edge. When there are times that intentionally you want to keep things kind of flat. If you're designing like a wall elevation for architecture or interior design, that's really like a closed composition. Closed. It does not go to, none of this information goes to the edge. This one, open, it does go to the edge, and so it seems that they're really like, it's easier to imagine depth and perspective with an open composition than it is with a closed one. And, closed composition is good in graphic design. It's good for designing pages, typography, all kinds of time. There are all kinds of times, especially in graphic design, where you don't want to create the illusion of depth because it's not necessary. It could be confusing, or it's just going to have, too much going on visually. If you were designing like book pages, which is a thing, people design books and book pages. You might design a menu for a restaurant. You might design all kinds, websites. If you can imagine, if you have like a website that is like too flashy, trying to do too many things, it could really interfere with the information that the website is supposed to communicate. Mm. Hmm. Let's do some more here. A little bit more. I'm not going to go over every last term. And I'm going to give you the terms. I'll send you a list of the terms. I'll send them to you over the weekend, and you'll have some time to complete this. Contrast. Contrast is an old favorite. So contrast is a difference. Contrast is a change of value, texture, color, scale, sound. I mean, contrast doesn't just apply to visual work. You can have something that you probably had the experience where you have to turn the volume up watching a TV show or a movie so that you can hear the dialogue, and then some their dramatic music is way too loud. That's contrast in sound. By contrast, like here, if I want to create an edge here, but I don't want to have that line, I can shade and create that edge by making it darker on this side and going right up to it, put the pen right on the line and then pull it away and create the appearance of that edge and eliminate the line. That's more realistic. Like that. It's also much more dramatic in terms of its, difference between this side and this side. When it's just a line, it's just the line is like a fence or something like that. Symmetry and asymmetry. Who knows what symmetry is?
Something you can fold in half and have it match each other?
Good. Yes, that is basically the idea of symmetry. So symmetry assumes there's a real or presumed center, and on either side of that center, you have equal elements. Like that. Symmetry balances because of whatever's here is there. You can have like a rotational symmetry so that you would have like up here, and if you like took that and like flipped it over, you have that. This can also be seen as symmetrical. You can have mirror image symmetry. Like if you look at hands, like, you know, hands, if I hold my hands up like that, if you can see me, my hands are like reversed mirror image, but they're the same. There are equal elements on either side. So asymmetry is when you have unequal elements on either side of that real or presumed center. So I might do like that. There's more on this side, less on that. And the thing that I think, you know, successful asymmetry does carry some sense of balance. You might have like, you know, more on this side, less on this side, but there's a certain harmony to it where it looks more natural. But like, you know, instead of like, you sort of like, you have a lot more over here, less over here. There is, you know, I find that asymmetry often, I mean, successful asymmetry also has some kind of appearance of balance. So that's symmetry, asymmetry. So you get the idea of what I might ask of you. When I give it to you and you are working on it, if you have questions, you can ask me questions. I won't necessarily just give away the answer, but you know, I might, you know, I'm not going to just tell you, just figure it out, unless I'm confident that if you keep working on it, you'll get there. But I'll certainly talk to you about it. Okay?
Duffy, I lost my connection for a little bit when you were talking about vocab. And before I got back on, I think you were talking about making the drawings and the visuals. So am I to understand that we have to draw visuals of all or part of the list that you're going to provide for definitions?
I will send you which terms I want you to do.
Okay, so in other words, do different people get different ones?
No, you're all going to get the same terms.
Okay.
Yeah, I have done it where I've created a vocabulary list, like a visual vocabulary list from, just like giving each student a term. But that's a different kind of an assignment. I'm going to ask you, I'll give you a list of like, maybe like 15 or 20 terms. And you'll have a period of time to finish it. It'll be more like an assignment rather than sit down and take a quiz.
Sure. So right now, as it stands, you have not sent those and there's no deadline set yet for completing it, correct?
Yes, because I was going to just have it like, I was going to just do it in Blackboard.
Uh-huh.
where I make a quiz and you take it online, but I can't really make you do the drawings if we do it that way.
Yeah, that sounds easier to not have to turn them in that way, meaning
Just
instantly. I wonder if anybody else in the class has had trouble. When I went to Blackboard, I could see the, whatever you call it, like icon, and then the list, the words, vocab and whatever. But when I clicked on it, nothing came up. So I can call the support desk or the tech people at Harper to see what I'm doing wrong.
you
But
could, but I can also send this to you.
okay, but I'm just wondering if anyone else in the class has clicked on it and had the list that you showed on your screen.
Anyone?
I mean, I totally get it if you haven't tried it yet,
Yeah.
but I think it's just my tech, meaning not you, Duffy, but the other classmates. And I'm not trying to ask you to drop everything and do it right now, but I think it might just be my tech challenges. So thank you, Duffy.
Sure.
Do you want me to try something or sorry, I didn't catch.
What Marion is saying is that when she clicked the link for the vocabulary list of terms and definitions, nothing came up. It's a Word document, and
Oh, on Blackboard?
yeah. So yeah, I mean with my Mac, when I click it, it downloads it, and so it I mean, in my case, it just it downloaded it quickly and opened it up.
You know what, Duffy? You might have solved it already. I have this. Harper was nice enough to lend me a Chromebook,
Oh yeah.
but apparently that's not the greatest in terms of, being user friendly.
If it has Microsoft Word on it, then it will open it up. If not, I can just make another document that's a PDF, and that might help.
Oh, you know what? It does not have words, so that's good to know.
That's open
But
up.
please do not make another, please do not make another one because you'll be sending them to me anyway. Meaning,
Yes, I will send it to you. I'll make a PDF in case somebody else needs it. It'll take a couple of minutes.
oh, I feel badly. Thank you.
Oh no, don't feel badly. They pay me for this, so.
Yeah, but not the most interesting.
That's fine. Oh, there was a lot of, you think your work is tedious and time consuming. I have my own tedious and time consuming work that I have to do. It just comes with the territory. So
I know.
it's all right. Don't apologize. You have. I do not mind you asking me for something, and it's not like you're not asking me for something that I can't do or that's going to take me very long. I think I consider it's part of my job to help you. So that's.
Okay, but if you want to hold off, Duffy, I'll send you an email later because there's a chance I'm just not doing something right. And as I say, those people.
It is a Word document, and if the Chromebook doesn't have Microsoft Word on it, which would kind of surprise me, then it wouldn't be able to open it up. Sometimes it can translate them. That'll convert the document from Microsoft Word to something that the device can open, but I'll send it to you. Whether whatever you do, try to see if you can contact tech support, see what they can do for you. But I'm going to send it to you anyway.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does not have Word because one of my kids was saying she was so glad to be done with the free high school Chromebook they gave her.
Okay. Yeah, well, it is nice, but limiting. Okay, well, I think that's enough for today. Thank you all for your time and attention. I will send out your vocabulary list of terms. Just seeing your logos coming in, I've started to grade some of the. Actually, I've been grading the shape and form. That'll be done this weekend, and I'll get on the logos. Yeah, Paulina, your logo looks really good, by the way. Yeah, we're looking at it Tuesday. Yeah, we're looking at it on Tuesdays. Let's look at it. Ooh, I want to look at this. This is so much fun. Discussion board. Come on, you can do it. Boo boo boo. Wait, no, sorry, wrong one. Logo, logo, logo. Hmm. There. Hey, come here. Oh my goodness. Okay, so nifty drawings here, and then yeah, that's cool. So the curves. I wanted to ask you those two curves. Is that the like part of the P turned facing each other? Hmm. Ah, cool. Thank you. It's good work. I like it that it's abstract, and I kind of get the, I got it that it's from your, from the two P's in your name. Cool. All right. I think that's enough for the morning. Thank you all for your time and attention. And if you have yet to get your logo done, do your logo and then get to painting.